Hello and welcome to the Baby Giants Investing Podcast. Join us as we chat about the weird and wild world of small cap investing, all while searching for the precious few fast-growing businesses that have a shot at becoming industry giants. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and is strictly not intended as financial advice. Any opinions are general in nature and do not take into account your personal circumstances, needs, or objectives. Securities mentioned are for illustration purposes only, and this podcast should not influence investment decisions. You should read the relevant PDS and consider speaking to a financial advisor before making investment decisions. Past performance is no indicator of future returns. Podcast guests and their clients may hold positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. All right, we're live. We've got Andrew and Claude and maybe Claude AI joining us later. I'll kick off with some good news. Feel free to jump in, guys. But one that I shared with you guys earlier in the week was Colossal Biosciences says it's getting close to bringing the woolly mammoth back from the dead with elephant cells. It's just crossed a technical hurdle of rejuvenating elephant cells that it says will be key in bringing back the woolly mammoth. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Well, I mean, that's another one of those tech stories that's forever been on the horizon. I reckon you could find headlines for that going back, but I'm here for it.
They've got like $1 billion market cap. It must be like their flagship thing that they're trying to do. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably why the stories keep coming. If you've got $1 billion market cap, you need to keep showing progress.
Yeah, true.
It's a funny thing, man, because it's like one of those tech things where if it before it happens, it's like incredible. Like a species that, mythical relationship with man's gone and we brought it back. But after it's happened, like you probably don't care. Like a few years later, you're just like, oh, they're just like hairy elephants. Like,
I remember Dolly being a massive deal when they cloned the sheep. I don't know if anyone even remembers that, right? And it was like, big deal.
And now animal cloning happens all the time. Like it's actually like a business to clone your pet in the US. Yep. And it's just like very matter of fact.
Yeah.
It's wild, eh?
So it's kind of cool. Do they have a commercial angle on it? Is it just to sort of because it can be done, or is that some dude setting up Jurassic Park or something?
Yeah, I think that this is just I think that's just the most publicity generating version of, once you can bring back the woolly mammoth, you can do a lot of other pretty cool stuff.
Thylacine, maybe.
What's that?
The Tasmanian tiger.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Well, what's cool about it, I mean, I think I'm actually very big on science for science sake. You don't know what stuff will come out of this. And so it's like, hey, we can bring the woolly mammoth back. It's like, well, that's kind of cool, but so what? But it's like, yeah, but it also turns out that the approach that we use and the techniques that we developed helps save babies in utero or whatever it happens to be. There'll be something like that. So yeah, go science.
Yeah, very cool. Another bit of good news. Humanoid robots at Amazon provide glimpse of an automated workplace. There was Agility Robotics. It's got a 5'9" robot that resembles a human.
Yep.
Walks like a bird and has glowing white eyes. Kind of sounds a bit menacing, to be honest.
Yeah.
These bird bots. But yeah, aiming to build 10,000 could automate a lot of boring jobs. You talked about this a little while ago, right, Andrew?
I'm increasingly bullish on robotics. Again, it's another thing that's sort of like, okay, how long have we been talking about this for? But some of the stuff that's coming out lately is just mind-blowing. So I had a chat with my some other friends the other day, and it was just sort of like, asking like, what would you spend for a decent one that could do a lot of sort of things around the house? And I think for a lot of people, you'd be prepared to spend up to a average size, mid-size family car type thing. I think for $40,000 to have a pretty good butler that's always available. I can totally see that, and so then we go down the cost curve as scale and manufacturing processes improved. So like it feels really close.
Yeah.
I want my robot butler.
Some other news. Well, I don't know if I guess it's good or bad depending on your perspective, but TikTok it looks like it's getting close to actually being banned or sold in the US, and it all happened quite quickly. So US is, I think, voting in the House of Representatives, and then it needs to go to the Senate. But just surprisingly, that's something that's been talked about for years. It was like towards the end of Trump's term when he was first talking about banning TikTok. Looks like it could actually be happening. And most likely it seems like it'd be a sale, unless basically TikTok's China parent just refused to spin it off and just, I don't know if they would do that. But yeah, it seems like the language is all about foreign adversary ownership. And so there's like 4 countries that are named if they own a social network with more than 1 million users. Yeah, so it seems like it could be happening. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
I think that it'll be interesting how China will fight back. I already heard about some big owner in ByteDance or whatever it is, you know, very active giving donations to politicians. I think that, you know, take that Vivek guy that was the GOP contender. Like initially he was against TikTok and then he got some donations from whatever, you know, PAC funded by the guy who has a massive interest in TikTok, and then he starts softening his stance on it. So there's always, you know, money definitely speaks in the US. I think that, I hope it's not the end days of democracy, but we're definitely not in the freshest part of the democratic experiment right now.
Okay, took us to a dark place, but no, that's fair. Yeah, no, there's some talk that Trump, I was reading, it might have changed his views because he's friends with that billionaire that invested in ByteDance as well. But yeah, I guess the other thing to consider was just to your point of what TikTok could do. Apparently they put out this like blast notifying all American users, like try and save TikTok. Here's how you contact your local people. And it like completely backfired, it seemed, because it just made all the senators like the whole reason that they don't like them is because they're foreign controlled and could like influence America. They're like just demonstrating it, right? By trying to influence American process. So,
but I think the thing is, it's a very interesting philosophical juncture we find ourselves, because the beauty of a democracy is that you do allow a lot more chaos into a system. It's less controlled, and you know, that's the wild garden that gets the new species and is beautiful and takes us all forward. Like, I don't think we've had, you know, most of the progress of humanity has been under capitalism and freedom. But, you know, I think that essentially then that allows foreign actors, whether it be China or Russia or Iran or somebody completely else, to come in and start meddling with your democracy and trying to, obviously it's a well-known technique. You just try and push people to the extremes. And that's absolutely what's happening. And that's what TikTok is going to be used for. It was so obvious from the whole way. It's just, you know, it's interesting how China doesn't even let America have their apps and stuff in China. It's like, it's if they was all people in a party and some guy was like, no, you can't have any of my wine, you wouldn't just keep on filling up their cup, you know?
Yeah.
I just wonder the logistics of banning it. It just, you know, in the digital realm, it just seems, I know you can make things a lot harder, right? And there's also a dimension to this, which is like people aren't being coerced onto this thing. They're electing to do it. And there's a great deal of value, rightly or wrongly, that a lot of people sort of derive from all of this. So it feels as though, not to say that laissez-faire, whatever, don't do anything about it, but it seems antiquated to sort of someone come out and say, we're going to ban this kind of stuff. It's like, well, are you? I mean, I can get a VPN pretty easily. There's a million ways to sort of get around that if I'm pretty dedicated to it. I don't know. Maybe it's enough to sort of kill it and curtail it enough so it loses its network effect. But
I think it's pretty easy to ban because it's on an app store, right? So as long as Apple and Google agree to it, then it's ways to jailbreak, but like it's a network, right? So like, so I think that they can, I think that gives them a lever, but I guess it's also like, it's more the banning the foreign ownership. So, you know, and the style of, it's kind of funny, like the idea of Claude said about like making us more extreme. It's kind of like we just do that to ourselves anyway. So like I guess it's more just like, as someone have their thumb on the scale, being a foreign adversary. I think it's like a no-brainer. I think it's the easiest thing to do is just force them to have to divest it. Yeah, I don't think that it'll still be there. It'll be owned by someone else who isn't, you know, an adversarial government or whatever. I don't think TikTok's going to go away unless China really forces its hand to get rid of it.
It'll create a bit of clear air for any clone of TikTok, you know, US based, if that was the case, right? Like it clearly scratches an itch for many people that you cannot get on Twitter or competing platforms.
Yeah.
I do think too, it pushes, again, without going off topic, but there's a lot of source development happening in the space. Nost is obviously the big one there. And that is the way it works, is pure open source, decentralized social protocols, which is growing really rapidly. And you can clone all kinds, or the existing sort of apps and use cases onto that kind of stuff. So I wonder if, like, perversely, banning it is just pushing more to an area of the internet which is by design open and permissionless. I don't know.
No.
Sus. No.
No?
But maybe you could tell us a little bit about Bitcoin.
It's not a Bitcoin. I mean, I'm interested if you've looked at it, because the user rates on this thing has exploded. I mean, it's like any new technology, right?
Yeah,
it's sort of like, I know that your mum and dad aren't using it, but it's...
No, it's only because it's easy. Like, people aren't going to jailbreak phones to use TikTok or whatever. It's like, it's about an effort thing. You know, if teenagers want an app or a platform to communicate with each other, it can literally be anything. Teenagers are the ones that are going to change it. You know, we've got new teenagers in 10 years.
Exactly.
Than we have today. So when like me and Matt at least would remember MSN. I don't know what they used in your day.
Come on.
And
We use courier pigeons.
was it like,
No.
yeah, courier pigeons? I thought it was something like that.
Imagine a pigeon arriving with like lol. Like chuckle send it down.
Teenagers will push whatever the other teenagers are on.
Do you know what teenagers are going to push for, dude? They're going to push for the thing where they can do whatever the hell they want on, right? And without any sort of control. Once...
You got to keep the back. Yes, they will. There'll be some new app that, like, remember Snapchat had its moment in the sun. There was like a generation of, who are they, like the Gen Z or whatever, that probably a segment of Gen Z are the ones that took Snapchat crazy.
I like your view, Andrew. I just maybe to see it all going the other way over the last like 30 years. We've gone from like a free open internet to like more and more walled gardens, because people like it's all about the UI. Like if it's a bit easier for me. I mean, even think of streaming, right? Like there was a time with streaming that seemed like it'd be an impossible model because you could just pirate and share files, but people just found streaming slightly easier. Like that was the main thing that killed piracy. It wasn't any government crackdown. It was just being slightly easier.
100%.
It was making the same product available through a legitimate pathway. Like the reason that all the file sharing, what they called again?
Yeah, but people don't care. Like I think that's true for some, Claude, but I think for a lot of people it was just easier. And part of the legitimate was that made it easier as well, right? You don't have to worry about being a virus or something.
Exactly. No, 100%. It was the legitimate way was like the safe way, because yes, you might download a movie or South Park or whatever it is, but then if your computer sort of breaks as a result of that, or like just forever run some botnet or whatever, it's just super annoying and not really worth it. So it's like as soon as you start, it took a little bit of time, but as soon as you took the switch to a legitimate way, it was there to stay.
I guess for me it's a question of the pain point. So you will absolutely, convenience trumps a lot of kinds of things, but if it gets to a point in time where everything is being shut down on the ends or closed up into more walled gardens, it creates a greater incentive for that outside development. And it's sort of like at a point now it's like, well, what's the downside of this? I don't really care if Netflix knows my viewing habits and my email address and my credit card. It's not a big deal. But at a point where, US senators are banning social media applications and, I don't know what that point is, but there comes another point where these other approaches become more attractive by virtue of the fact that things are too hard. So it's just, I don't know. It's something that things move so fast in this space. It's just, I'm putting it out there as a possibility.
Yeah. Last kind of point I just make on it is I think it shows that we're getting a bit more geopolitical, and they're like, I mean, this is a pretty clear example, but just also that they've named China as like one of 4 adversaries alongside Iran and North Korea and the thing. It's like, it shows how much the, mood and tone has shifted, that this seems like likely to surpass, with China being named as very clearly an adversary, which had previously been this big partner. And just that government's getting a bit more actively involved in a lot of things, which we talked about before. Like we could just see government shaping, if we're thinking from an investment perspective, like is this in the favor of the government becomes more of a relevant factor than it was at any time in our lives before, and probably increasingly so. Yeah.
I mean, it really is a concern. I mean, Ross Gittins wrote a really good article recently, and he was sort of talking about sort of the role of sort of news as anything that someone somewhere once kept secret, right? And it makes you sound like a bit of a crazy person. But when you start getting to the point where government is dictating what's in the public domain and what can be discussed and where it can be discussed and that, it's just a slippery slope. It's not like you go to extremes very quickly, but it is something I think you need to be worried about, or just vigilant too, because it's one of these things that sort of liberty dies the death of 1,000 cuts kind of thing, and it sneaks up on you. So anyway, I think overall it's a concern, and it's more a question too of, it's like, even if your side happens to be winning right now and they're sort of pushing back on the things that you're happy for them to push back on, what if your team's not in power in 4 years' time, and and then other decisions are being made? So it's anyway, it's worth mentioning.
It's a weird thing, just this whole the way the attention economy is going too, right? Like the TikTokification of every app.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read an interesting thing. It was kind of cynical and maybe too negative, but it was just basically saying that this is kind of the future of economics. It's like the future of culture, basically. It's just going to become this. Like we're just increasingly going down this mindless scrolling thing.
I definitely worry about the mental health ramifications of that, rather than say reading a book or something like that.
Yeah, just connecting with other people or whatever else, being in touch with reality. But it's huge, and it's I do think that's it. I think I might have mentioned before on the pod, like the idea that the disease of the 20th century, or the affliction of the 20th century was disease when we all moved into cities, and then it was cancer from like oils and whatever else petrochemicals, and then maybe of current
Sugar.
21st century is and sugar.
Opioids. Yeah.
But maybe today it's basically like mental health because of this thing. It's just trying to not become crazy with the things happening.
I think technology is always going to be a mirror to what's already there. The more
that might be true, but you don't want to look in a mirror for too long, man.
Especially if you're me. Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah. You're the handsomest of us all, mate.
Oh, you. But it's clearly, I mean, the genie's out of the bottle, right? And it's not so much what the technology enables, it's the fact that you have very concentrated power and some very small, very powerful kind of hands whose optimization incentives are around whatever it takes to sort of keep you there. So it's more the algos and that are pushing us in the wrong direction than what the actual broader suite of platforms enable us to kind of do. And again, I feel as though you will find, particularly with this development in this area moving pretty rapidly and in ways that are much more accessible, where you can offer alternatives where it's like, hey, this is Twitter but with no algorithm, or this is Facebook but we do it this way. You have more bespoke solutions on top of a social graph, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm with you. Speaking of technology and concentration, you guys have been playing with Claude AI, not playing with Claude. What what have you found, Andrew? I haven't actually used Claude AI for a while, so I haven't used the latest upgraded version.
I had a chat with Claude AI and said we were going to mention it on the pod, and asked if it wanted to introduce itself. I'll paraphrase. Said, "Oh boy, you've really put me on the spot here, Claude." It said, "I wonder what the odds of two Claudes, one artificial and one human, coming together to chat about something as specific as Baby Giants investing." And I said, "Yeah, like, tell me, what is the actual chance of that?" And it said, let's see, we'd need to factor in the popularity of the name Claude, the number of AI assistants in existence, the likelihood of AI being named Claude, the probability of human Claude hosting a podcast, the niche topic of Baby Giants investing, chuckles. I think we might need a supercomputer to crunch those numbers. But you know what? I'm going to take a wild guess and say the chances are probably somewhere in the ballpark of 1 in a billion. So it's like has quite a lot of personality.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the impressive stuff was the ability to upload PDFs and images, and it's pretty powerful. So I feel as though the natural comparison for those that have played around it is ChatGPT.
And you've been using GPT-4, Andrew? Or are you using...
No, I hadn't. I did have a very small play around in the day, but it just seems like a quantum leap in improvement in just terms of how it feels, but also just what you can do. So the point I think that is interesting is that you've got to stop anthropomorphizing this thing, right? And there is an art to doing it, I'm finding. And so you want to be very specific in your prompts, and you want to have a very deliberate goal in mind. But in terms of, let's just keep things grounded in terms of where the tech is now, as opposed to what it might be in the future. For example, I uploaded the latest annual report for Supply Networks, SNL, really interesting company, and then just asked it a series of questions, and it just came back, and I proofed them all. They were all accurate. But just as a time-saving device, you say it's nothing other than this really cool.
How do you upload things to it?
It's just got a little paperclip icon in the chat box, like an attach icon.
Just ask it, Claude. Ask it how to do it.
Yeah. And
it says images, but you can put up PDFs, can you?
Yeah. I've uploaded an entire annual report. Upload multiple, right? And so what I find it is,
images or as a PDF.
PDF.
Damn it.
Yeah, okay. You got the pro version?
I'm not sure what version.
I don't think you can do it I think you can do it on the free one anyway. I haven't played. If anyone's listening, have a play, because it is free for a certain number of prompts, and they use an older model. But I think it's 30 Aussie a month, and you get the full. You're still limited in the number of prompts. The compute time is very intense. Another cool use case. So I'll finish that point. So it's really cool in terms of, if I could have a personal assistant analyst who works alongside me to just sort of say, hey, I need you to read these annual reports and just come back. I'm looking for this. Can you go and find it for me? It doesn't do anything that you weren't previously able to do. It's just now that it happens in 30 seconds where it might have taken like all day.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Another really cool use case was I uploaded a chart. Went to Ava Risk Group's latest presentation. They got a chart there for their sales orders, and just put this into a table format, and it just read it all off.
Wow.
You got to eyeball some of these charts that you get in presentations, and what is that? And then import that into Excel. That is really cool too. It did make some mistakes on that. I was like, and I said, that looks a little bit off. To me, that looks more like this. And it goes, oh, you're right. Let me fix it for you. And so that iterative ability
That's the problem, though, when it's like wrong stuff.
Yeah, but I feel as though you're really harsh on this, Claude, because I totally get you that I swing between you and me is the reasonable viewpoint, because I'm the tech fanboy. It's like, this is brilliant, it can do anything, and you're like, yeah, is it though? It's a bit limited. And I think the truth is somewhere in between there. This tech is less than 2 years old, like in the public domain. It's so like brand new, and this is an order of magnitude more powerful than what we've seen previously. And although it's not infallible, it's kind of like pretty good. It's pretty good. And I just, again, the point I've made in previous pods is, I don't know, what's this thing look like in 5 years' time, 3 years' time? I think it gets to a point where it's just like the total addressable market is pretty much everyone, right? Like why wouldn't I want something like this? No matter what my job, it's going to have very broad applicability, even if the total value add is just more advanced search, which I think is going to be far more than that. But it's just like, even with that, that's sort of like, yeah, I'm in. I'll pay $30 a month, no problem.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like very similar to, it sounds like a better version of GPT-4's paid tools. I'm just trying to think because I'd been uploading PDFs. Can you do like calculations on it? Can you ask it to like figure out numbers?
Yes, you can. So I just, I'm going to dox myself too much, but going through some finance calculations for the home and everything, it's just sort of like, I've been thinking about it, and I'm sort of sitting in front of the prompt screen thinking, well, what can I do? What can I ask it? Did exactly that. Here's the deposit. Here's this. Here's some other assets here. Which one should I sell? What is the best strategy? Yeah. And it came back.
Sell Bitcoin, you get like, no, wrong.
No, you do not touch the Bitcoin. Bad computer. It came back with, well, it depends. If you expect this to grow by that, anything growing by more than this amount, you're better off doing it this way. If not, it's that way. And it's just, and I sort of double checked the maths, and it was like, yeah, it's actually a really smart answer. So it's just, I don't know why I'm continually blown away with this stuff. I feel like most of the world's gone, wow, this is amazing. And it's like Dolly the sheep.
I'm like that though, because you adjust to it and then you have another moment, which is like crazy again. Like the idea of just think how crazy it was just generating images, right? Like a year ago, like, that was, and just how much we've adapted to that. Where now there's a point where you like see an AI image, and you're like, oh, that looks a bit like an AI, like a lot of them, like you have to work to make it look better, basically. Yeah. Whereas, it's just like, it's funny how it's like the hedonic treadmill or something. You just adapt to it, but.
So true. It's not, and I know they're working on actually generating images as well through this. So imagine, if you will, it's sort of like, here you go, 5 PDFs, the last 5 years annual reports. Can you produce a chart for me showing how free cash flow has changed over the years? Also, can you make sure that you deduct for this? And I want to, and whatever you want to do, it doesn't make us investors obsolete. I just think it makes us, people are going to be doing all kinds of dumb things on the market, because people will be asking dumb prompts and looking for the wrong kind of things. But in terms of that efficiency boost, it's just, I'm overselling it here, but I just like, have a play with it if you haven't, and ask some, think about, I'm looking at a company, what would I like to know? Upload a few annual reports and just ask it some questions and see how you go. It's really cool.
Any other thoughts on Claude?
I asked it what it thought about the hedonic treadmill, which is also known as hedonic adaptation. It's quite a long response, so I won't read it all. It's a psychological concept that suggests people tend to return to a relatively stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes. It does say stable, right? But stable is... you might be stable level of happiness, but presumably that level can change anyway. So
you're such a hard marker.
No,
that's your issue with the response.
That wasn't an issue. No, that wasn't an issue at all. Like that, I was taking that on face value and just being like trying to think about what it was actually saying and understand it myself, because I actually
hedonic treadmill is like when you get a salary increase, your happiness goes up, but then it goes back to basically close to where it was. That's the idea. It's like no matter any improvements in your life, those types of things.
What's kind of cool too, I can quickly recommend for people is that there's if you search Anthropic customized prompts, like just say you're working in Excel, there's a prompt that you can put at the start. It's like, you are an Excel wizard. It loads into it a whole bunch of context that will then lead to much better answers. So I think a lot of people are still looking at this and it's like, wow, it's so amazing how conversational you can find information and present that information in a way that's never been sort of written before, which is really cool. But I guess the latest wow factor for me is just like, rather than you just searching whatever you've been trained on, I am going to train you on this. And I am then going to question you on that. And that is, for me, it's like, yeah, this is just moved to a next level.
Yeah, I feel like, Andrew, you think that I'm being harsher on it than I actually am. Like, the personal use that I've been using for Claude AI has been to educate myself a bit more about some of the philosophies I'm interested in. So nice. Stuff like Epicurus and then Lucretius. And I feel like I do have some spiritual elements to my personality, but these are philosophers who teach about, the pursuit of happiness and just sort of generally what to think of things and that kind of thing that I've been like really enjoying learning more about through Claude AI, which that's why I've found it's been better than ChatGPT, which is just a little bit, you can't learn about it as much because it's exploring these ideas of logic and, what's internally consistent and using logic to figure out, what is a good life and how should you pursue happiness. But that's why I was interested in the thing that Matt brought up because, essentially that's like totally in that theory that I'm interested in. But I guess, perhaps that is supporting the Epicurean philosophy because Epicurean philosophy would say, happiness is best pursued by moderate pleasures and the avoidance of pain and anxiety. And that probably fits roughly with, what Matt was saying, like those high highs when you're really excited and delighted about something. It does go back to a more stable level. But then how do you make that stable level as high as you possibly can? Perhaps that is best done through moderate pleasures and like regular moderate pleasures and the avoidance of pain and anxiety.
So funny what you said there reminded me of another use case I saw throughout the week. So again, these models, the ones that we're sort of talking about, very generalized. I mean, they're extraordinarily generalized, but people have obviously been working on sort of bespoke versions with a more narrow domain focus. And one of the areas that's showing real promise is therapy, because you've got an infinitely patient who will absorb any information. It will listen to you talk about yourself all day, right? And it'll help you sort of think things through and that. And so it's sort of like, and I find that if you're finding some value in something, it's a very generalized model. You can imagine something that has been focused purely and trained exactly in these kinds of areas that will have even better results, right? So fascinating.
You guys have seen the movie Her, right? I think
yeah, great movie.
Yeah. I think I mentioned before, but the voice assistant now with ChatGPT's native app for the paid version sounds just like Her.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson. Yeah. And I've been using it with my kids to like, if they have asking a question, like they'll read like the Hulk book and they're like, what are gamma rays? And like, oh, radiation. Like ask like, hey, my 4-year-old son's asking about this. And it's crazy. It's like having a super smart nanny that talks and is like, oh, hey, what do you think about any other questions? Anyway, so it's hard to describe. Yeah, very cool. I get the implications, like ways to play it. ASX, any thoughts on AI? Any updated thoughts on that for you guys?
Yeah. So it's here, right? And it is going to dominate the headlines for a while yet, because as I said, the broad applicability means that and I mean, we've noticed this as well, right? Like how many companies have had their recent results out without mentioning AI somewhere in there? Yeah. Now, of course, you've got to have some healthy skepticism with all that, because companies just jump, particularly small caps, jump on whatever the latest trendy thing is to put in your presentation. But there's legitimacy to it. And I think, I know I've made this point before, but I think for me, it's like with email. Does a company have a competitive advantage because it uses email? Like, no, it doesn't, because everyone's got it type thing. The ones that will have the real advantage are those that have proprietary data sets that they can point the AI towards something that others can't. I think that creates a very potent flywheel. So yeah, that's where I would look to do it. I'd be very skeptical anyone is just sort of mentioning AI in very broad terms and using it, explaining the value prop in a way that would not be unique to them. It's like, well, yeah, I can see how that's an advantage, but how is it an advantage to you and not to your competitors? That's the question I'd be asking.
Yeah. It's like Buffett's tiptoe effect, right? Like standing at tiptoes to see the parade, and then everyone else starts standing at tiptoes.
Exactly that.
Sore legs. Yeah. I think that was relevant because Klarna came out saying how much like customer service time it saved. When I was chatting with a friend about whether that's, they were saying that could mean every company is more profitable now. And it's kind of like, well, does it? Like, not if it gets competed away, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's got broader implications too. Like the more I've thought about it, it's just like, I think we are going to see very sustained and growing demand for power because they are very power hungry. I think the data center space is still juvenile. It's got a long way to go. I don't know if it's going to be brilliant economics there or not. I'm still trying to figure that out. But in terms of the build out that is still required, like you kind of think, gosh, how many servers does Amazon need? It's like, oh, they can use a lot more, right? They're co-locating nukes now. Like it's sort of, that is going to be another theme that I think is very interesting. It may even have macro inflationary effects if the competition for power, if the demand for power runs ahead of whatever supply we're able to bring online. And these are very big, powerful companies. They will be able to outbid a lot of other consumers of electricity. So it's multifactorial in its implications.
Well, speaking of a giant in that space, NXT, from memory, having talked to you guys, don't ever recall any of us being a big fan of it. And I've always sort of, I can remember looking this thing when it was under $2. And
yeah, it was a massive miss from me, 100%.
Many years ago. And it's like, you just I did my analysis, as if I could see the future, I thought. And I thought, it's going to be a tough business, probably won't be a massive winner. And it's 10 bagged in 10 years or whatever.
Yep.
And yeah, look, it is based on, the general rules of thumb that I would use to try to ascertain if something was a good business. It's capital intensive, makes it hard to flow back cash to shareholders, and it needs more capital to keep growing. But yeah, sure enough, the share price has gone absolutely nuts. Real winner from that perspective. And even to this day, it's not profitable. So I never would have called it. And it still kind of amazes me, but it shows there's some lesson there. I'm not quite sure.
I think you're right, Claude. And I was the same. I was just like, I thought what they were selling ultimately was a commodity, just, rack space, server time, that kind of thing. And yes, there is demand for it, but the market will meet that demand. And yeah, very capital intensive. And so I just sort of struggled to see how an ASX listed company, particularly on the internet, right? There's no boundaries. It's just why can't the middle of the Utah desert just be full of server farms that just completely outcompete them on the economics? But it probably, and I'd be interested in any listeners out there who know it better than what we do, is if it's just a question of, well, the demand is that strong that they can't build out fast enough, and that whatever they can build, they can fill to capacity at a reasonable price. I don't know.
Okay, Andrew, that has led me to my burning question for you, which is I finally, first of all, I acknowledge you told me to buy Bitcoin ages ago. I did, and then I sold it. I should have just held it. So you were right. Sorry I didn't follow your advice. Robbed myself there. Secondly, though, I gave into the FOMO again and bought some. But my one concern with it is I feel like all of the power that's why I kind of sold it as well. I feel like the power that goes into maintaining Bitcoin is kind of ultimately bad. And that's why, that's my concern, essentially.
Yeah. So do you want me
to
give us a short version?
Your rationalization.
There's no short versions in this space, but the very short version is that the way that the incentives work is that the mining is really only profitable at the absolute lowest cost energy. So it is by far, it uses a huge amount of electricity, but some of these figures you hear are spurious in the sense that they'll say it uses as much as Norway. It's like, well, that's true. But you could say Xbox users use as much as Norway, or, hair dryers. It's sort of, yes, it uses a lot of electricity. The more relevant question is, what do you get for that electricity? And then there's also the difference between, are you taking electricity out of available supply for those that need it more, or are you actually
incentivizing?
So it's more than 50% is on renewables. It only tends to use, it's very strong in terms of using stranded energy. It's massively, and it's actually forecast to be carbon negative in the next 5 years, because one of the best sources for them are methane flaring and landfill sites. So it's sort of like, if you're going to be buying off the grid, you're just not going to be competitive. And so mining is moving all to that sort of space. So what does that do? One, it increased the robustness of the network. Look into the Texas electricity market. And they've got all of the Bitcoin miners in the US are in Texas pretty much. And they have found that cost to consumers has decreased. They've had improved grid stability, and it incentivizes massively and subsidizes the build out of renewable energy. It is an absolute 180 from the mainstream narrative. And it's at a point now where I just say Google it, and you will find some very credible research from Harvard and others that have done the numbers and just said that this is a net good. If you are for incentivizing low emission energy and supply curtailment, grid robustness, bringing power to like African villages and all of this kind of stuff. This is a technology you should 100% get behind. And
what
that's
if you're
the short
against
version.
bringing power to it?
What?
There's no level of claim.
There's a very good I don't know, argument saying if you're in favor of power to African villages, who's going to argue against that?
It's such a like. All I can say is verify, don't trust, because I don't give a stuff. Everyone can believe what they want to believe, but I'm just saying the facts are out there. If you want to, this is what makes this thing so fascinating, is that the narrative proves to be very much a 180 to a lot of the hot takes that you get from ill-informed people. And it's sort of like, it's a legitimate concern and it's an obvious one. And it's one that worried me a lot until I looked into it. And I'd encourage others to look into it because you'll find it surprising.
I do think that there's heaps of potential with demand side management for grid balancing, like to have a large switch-offable load that can fill the gaps is definitely potentially beneficial for high level of renewables.
It is. It's not potentially, like they've done the numbers. I've gone blank on. There's a guy who really follows it closely in Texas in the electricity market.
I didn't dispute that. I was just saying it's definitely potentially like I can definitely, like, logically, you know that there's some potential for that. Absolutely.
There's even some really cool startups in the space where it's sort of like, there was a time where in Australia you got some really good feed-in tariffs for your solar. Now it's like it's hardly worth it. It's like, why not just run a Bitcoin mine, right? Like have a little ASIC in your garage or whatever that just churns out. You might make, $60, $70 a week on that.
With your new house, you're going to have space for a Bitcoin mine.
It's a tiny thing. It's like a computer.
You're going to do it, Andrew?
Yeah,
I think so.
You've got room for it now. Have a
cool.
But you know why I'm going to do it? I'm going to do it.
I used to install solar arrays. I love solar arrays.
Oh, I'll get you out. I'll get you out to have a look. But it's this kind of like, I like to subsidize my costs. And so why wouldn't I? And I get to strengthen the security of the network at the same time, and I make money. It's like I'll participate in that.
Should we cut down the tree ourselves for the solar array?
Cut down the tree?
Yeah. Do you need to cut down trees to make?
No.
We got space. You got
nice and clear. Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. Oh, yep. That's the nicest one. You have a little winery there as well.
Tell you what, this thing keeps pumping, and anything's possible, man.
You brought up the grid. I was deciding whether we were going to mention this time, but I saw an interesting thing, which I've been digging a lot into the grid economics for a while, but I hadn't really appreciated. It was kind of talking, this is from a solar energy guy, but he's just talking about the transmission costs of solar. And one thing I hadn't really factored in was if you have something that's only, say, 25% uptime, like solar, and you build, say, $1 billion, transmission line to it, you're only using that, a quarter of the time. So the kind of like transmission cost per dollar or per kilowatt or whatever you want to call it is kind of quadruple. And I hadn't appreciated it before. And I think that's one of the bigger challenges to the widespread grid adoption. I hadn't really made that connection before of how much the transmission network increase after a certain level becomes a challenge. I guess it's
and you have to build the as you know, the challenge is you've got to build for maximum demand. Like, so where is the peak demands? That's what the infrastructure has to provide for. So it always runs under capacity. So and there is a lot of in the space where it's like just curtailment. It's just like they just waste energy because the economics break down at a point. So if you've got something co-located, this will just be the norm, frankly. You will just have energy generation sites co-location with mining entities. And it's just like, they'll just push it towards that. It is the buyer of last resort. It is the marginal buyer. It is the person that will buy it at any price, off you when you can't sell it, because it's all positive for them. So
maybe aside from the Bitcoin thing, I'm just curious your thoughts. Do you think I'm increasingly seeing that if we transition, it's going to be more expensive for basically the same thing, aside from stopping climate change, right? How far along the way do you think we go before? Do you see political will starting to change? Because I'm starting to see a little bit. I'm just interested in your guys' thoughts.
With Bitcoin?
As in, no, with transition. As in, we just don't actually transition. If we have so much more energy need from AI, etc., and it becomes more and more expensive to transition, just that the will starts going. If we're like 5-10 years, basically, we're not like remotely close to hitting the 2030 targets. Like the 2030 targets are just 100%, I would bet a lot of money, if anyone's listening, that then we're not going to hit those targets. At what point? I'm just curious how you see it playing out. Not what you'd like to play out, but what do you guys see?
Yeah. Well, I think it's absolutely possible for us to collectively act in a way that it's for our own mutual survival. I don't think the politics are going to allow for. I'm at the point where the solution needs to be a technological one, where it's just sort of like the tech gets to a point where the economics are just sort of a no-brainer. It's just like the climate part of the equation isn't a factor. It's like, we're not doing this because it's good for the environment. It's just cheaper and better for us to do it that way. I think I feel as there's too much intransigence in the political space. Even in the year 2024, we've been debating this for 50 years now. It's like, well, is the world really going to flip, especially with all this growing demand? It's really depressing, but that's kind of the best hope we've got at this point.
You're going to jump in, Claude?
I don't know.
Good thing hope springs eternal, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, what else are we going to do? Right? I mean, I would hope that our leaders, pull their finger out, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I think the other thing is just adapt, basically. People just adapt to climate change. I mean, rich countries could probably afford to, adapt to a lot of it. Yeah, I guess it's just more of a muddle through, maybe.
Well, that's the question of like, to adapt to what? Are we talking about? If these are non-linear tipping point scenarios, it's just like, well, adapting is possible, but it's slightly different to like, oh, maybe our summers are a bit hotter and drier as opposed to like, a quarter of the bread basket of the world failing or something like that, God forbid.
Maybe jumping around a bit, Andrew, you were looking at Bailador recently.
Yeah.
For a while.
Nothing new in terms of the results there, but these guys are basically a listed investment company. They focus on early stage tech companies. We've talked about them before. I just caught my eye with, not a lot of news out lately, but they had their NTA backing. And I think what's interesting about Bailador is that there is such a discount between their current traded price, which is $1.32 or so, and the post-tax NTA. So if you take all of their investments, sell it, pay tax on it, that's $1.61. So it's a 20% discount. Now, you hear a lot of the pitches for these kinds of companies which begin and end with that discount to NTA, ergo good. And I don't want to make that case, but I think there's some extra data points here that make it more interesting. The first is that 35% of that NTA is cash, right? So I was like, yep, I'm gonna take that valuation as pretty accurate. 36% of it is listed investments. So again, we don't have to rely on independent valuers to try and thumbsuck a number in these very early stage companies, which are an incredibly dark art of valuing. So it's sort of like you've now got over 70% of the value in things that you can have reasonable confidence in that is an accurate valuation. In terms of their listed investments, it's by far and away SiteMinder, which is also listed. We've spoken to the CEO before. Actually got to get him back. He was really good. And the company just kicking goals, right? Obviously got knocked around with COVID. There's do software for the travel industry. But I mean, just recently, what did we see? 27% revenue growth, ARR up by the same amount. They're now calling for targeted revenue growth of 30% per annum over the medium term, free cash flow positive in the second half. It's just sort of like, the numbers are really encouraging here. And BTI has been involved with these guys since they had 5 million in revenue. So they've been a very early stage investor and they've continued to sort of back it as it has executed, as you would hope to see someone who's running this particular strategy has. And I think the other sort of point that I'd make is that, again, Claude said, hope springs eternal. But there's something to be said for a company like this that has, when you look across the suite of investments it's made over its lifetime, they've had really good results. It is inherent in the model that not everyone is going to be a winner. But on average, they have been very, to date at least, savvy allocators of capital. And so for all of those reasons, I just think it's interesting that they just can't seem to get arrested. And I'm not saying that they need to be 3 times their current price, but like a 20% discount to NTA, given all of that, and given the massive inside ownership and alignment with management and the founders, it just ticks a lot of boxes, and I'm surprised it's not talked about more.
I think it's definitely better than FDV, which is somewhat similar sort of story from memory.
Yeah.
But I saw now FDV has come down so far.
Mm-hmm. If Frontier is more like operating, though, I think, Claude, like it's kind of like
it's
a parent
true.
that owns stakes, and it's more like a.
You're exactly right. They're not really the same thing, but I think I'm correct in saying like you might use some sort of similar mental models for valuing them.
Yeah, I think you could say.
Yeah, yep. I mean, it's a sum of the parts kind of valuation.
I've never been a big fan of the sum of the parts valuations, but that's not to say it doesn't work.
But this is why I think this is one of the factors is why it's interesting. When it comes to some of the parts, like a third of it is just like, there is no arguing it, right? It's just cash. And the other third is close to, is one listed company that we know what's trading at on the market.
SiteMinder is pretty good.
Yeah, it's performing really well. I think, again, given the kind of business that they're in and what happened to the world, I think that they've been executing very well. So it sort of seems like, I don't know. If you trust the capital allocation of management, You've got a pretty strong balance sheet that's there. You've got a good track record, and you've got a significant discount to NTA. It feels as though it's, as I said, it's worth looking at.
Nice.
I've got shares for full disclosure.
Okay, cool.
Oh wow! So
Small
you
amount.
bought some shares in that.
I got my strawman portfolio. I've got a few as well.
Instead of more Bitcoin. Wow, that's dedication.
Well, the wife put the foot down at a point. I was like, enough.
Thanks for sharing, man. That's appreciate that you put into introducing that to us.
One other bit of news, there's another takeover in small cap land, which is Task Group. Got a bid from PAR Technology for 81 cents a share, which is 103% premium to where it was trading. And Task is like, I guess it's kind of like terminal and app software for, it had been like kind of like point of sale terminal for restaurants. It kind of ranged their existing business. Task was more like, fast managing restaurant technology, kind of the whole system. They tried to be more like full stack software loyalty. And then they reverse merged into another listed company called Plexure, which was a New Zealand company that had basically McDonald's app outside.
I remember that.
Yeah, I'd owned that, done fairly well on it back in the day.
Yeah, nice one.
And then it subsequently did not go as well in later time, which led to Task merging with it. But yeah, so I guess just a small kind of, I don't know, success story. 100% takeover, 100% premium, well above where at least the Task merged entity had ever traded, I believe. And yeah, maybe another sign. I guess wasn't, in my mind, like an extremely high quality technology business by any means, but probably the company's acquiring, all that distribution that they'd built out, and that can be quite valuable as well.
Yeah, nice. So they got a good deal, you think?
I think, I guess it's more like a strategic thing, right? So I guess that's where I think so. I think it's a good price for shareholders. They should be pretty happy. It's got a decent size, like it was around, low profitability, but, for someone else to acquire it, they then get a path to kind of come in and roll out their own stuff. It like saves them a lot of distribution and selling costs. So I think that's fair for them. And good outcome for shareholders, kind of hunting for more distressed or just companies that haven't been getting as much attention from the market. I think it can work.
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. Feels like the pace of takeovers is taking up. I don't know. It's ticking up. I don't know if that's just anecdotal, but it feels that way.
100%. Yeah, there's heaps going through. Yeah, there's as we had a question a few weeks ago, like is the market shrinking too much and whatever else? But yeah, we'll see how long it continues.
There's QIP Quantum as well, which scanned cheap for ages, and it's like, you see these things that scanning cheap, and you're like, oh, should I buy it? Not much of a long-term compounder thesis there, but then you get these takeovers, and then boom, a big return. So definitely something that I think is probably more handy for just a little everyday investor can kind of play that strategy and put their eggs in a bunch of different baskets and see which ones come good.
Yeah, I like it for upside potential and something that I like already. Again, I've said before, don't really like to speculate too much on them. All right, Claude, did you want to close us out?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I wanted to kick off with two things I'm grateful for. You made me think of one of them, Andrew. Like we had kind of La Nina this year, right, instead of El Nino, and I think maybe it's even shaping up to stay in La Nina for a bit. So that's always a relief because, I'm scared of when it all burns down. And the other thing is we just had Canberra Day and Melbourne, etc. had Labor Day. So if you live in Sydney or Brisbane or Queensland or New South Wales, you got to get yourself an extra public holiday, because I don't know if you guys realize that the rest of Australia is skiving off while you're hard at work, probably going into the office even.
Yeah.
Just write to your politician.
Wait, are you saying is this an additional day? Like if you add up all the public holidays for Canberrans, they get more than what we get here in Sydney?
I believe so.
They're all
that's
public
what I'm trying to highlight for you guys. We do. And so that's why I wanted to tell you about it and say I'm grateful for me having it, but also.
So what do you do on Canberra Day? Is there any like festivities? Is there like a parade or something?
There might be, but the traditional thing to do is leave Canberra and go to the beach.
That sounds like a very Canberra Day thing.
Yeah. It's the traditional
Get
thing
the
to
hell
do
out
on
of
Canberra Day. Is you swarm the south coast all at once with your little blue number plates that have a Y on them, and then there's like they have a resistance at the south coast. Like I can't remember the rude slang for Canberrans that they use anymore. Someone can just privately let me know who's the south coast local. I've forgotten what it is now. It's very offensive.
Yeah, nice.
Anyway, everyone else needs to get on that public holiday. And the other thing is, instead of I don't know if they still have it, but instead of Melbourne Cup, ACT has Family Day, but it's on Melbourne Cup Day, or at least it used to be.
Family Day.
Which I thought was
that's
funny.
Nice.
We should make up more days, get more public holidays. I feel like this is a political party we could all get behind. Probably even get the TikTokers politically active behind the public holiday party.
Yeah, I'll vote.
Holiday party. Yeah, nice. What about you, Andrew?
I'm grateful for the weather lately, actually. I'm looking out my window now. Everyone seems to love, at least in my life, summer. And I'm just, I don't like the hot heat. when it comes into like autumn and you've still got like a bit of sun and warmth on your face, but it's not like, you're not being fried, that is for me. And I'm loving the seasonal change.
Very nice. I'll say progress. We're just talking about AI, and obviously it can all be a bit scary, but I just think it's pretty awesome to be living during a time where things are improving or getting better or having more options. Like, just think for millions of years of human history, like in your lifetime, you'd never see anything invented or change. Like, pretty crazy what we're living through. So yeah, I'm grateful to have fun with that.
Awesome. Nice. Thanks, guys.
Cool. All right. Until next time, hit us up on Twitter at BabyGiantsPod, and thanks very much for listening.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone.